What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video we're finally going to do it. We're going to build a gaming PC inside this, one of the latest versions of Lian's O11 dynamic chassis. With an awesome glass front and side panel, a really unique interior layout, and room for our powerful RTX 3080 graphics card, this is going to be one hell of a gaming PC build. In this video, I'm going to put the system together and walk you through all of the components we chose and why, tell you what we love and what perhaps you should avoid. We're then going to boot the system up to see how good it looks when it's all powered up, before finally testing out the performance in a load of the latest and most popular titles. And yes, we will be benchmarking Fortnite before anybody asks. Let's do this. The Corsair K70 RGB 10 keyless Champion Series keyboard is one of Corsair's latest releases and builds a keyboard in an awesome 10 keyless form factor. The Champion range has been specifically developed with top esports pros and builds on years of testing. RGB can be easily customized in Corsair iCUE as usual, while durable PBT double shot keycaps and Cherry MX switches guaranteed for 100 million keystrokes keep you on top of your game. Learn more at the link in the description below. As always, we're going to kick this video off by installing as many components into the motherboard as possible. This is going to make the whole build process that little bit easier. For the motherboard, I've selected the MSI B550 Tomahawk. It's one of the best B550 boards around right now, supports the latest Gen 4 SSDs, and up to a Ryzen 9 5950X. So this thing is nice and future-proofed. Talking of the CPU, we haven't gone for a Ryzen 9 today, but we've got pretty close. We've opted for a Ryzen 7 5800X. This is one of the best CPUs on the market right now. It's super powerful with 8 cores and 16 threads and some fantastic single-threaded performance as well. We're going to couple our Ryzen CPU up with 32GB of Corsair's Vengeance RGB Pro memory. 32GB of RAM is perfect for an RTX 3080 spec system, as 16 can become a bottleneck nowadays. The white colour also looks really nice, and I'm looking forward to pairing this RAM with NZXT's new N7 motherboard. That could be quite cool for an all-white system. With our short-term memory installed, it's time to pop in our longer-term storage. And that's where Seagate's Firecuda 510 series comes in. It's a pretty fast NVMe SSD drive with a nice blacked-out PCB, and you even get Seagate's free data recovery as standard. So on the off chance the drive, were to fail, you can send it off to them, and there's a very high probability they'd manage to get everything back, which is probably quite good for peace of mind, I would imagine. And with that, our motherboard assembly is basically complete. We've got the processor, the RAM, and our storage installed, which means we can move this over into the case today. Specifically, this is the Lian O11 Dynamic Mini. Now, I have had so many comments from you guys asking for a Lian O11D build, and I've finally delivered. I've also ordered a full-size O11D, which is a bit crazy. Even this mini version still supports full-size ATX motherboards. But aesthetically, I think this is a little bit better proportioned. We've got room for a 360mm rad at the top of the chassis, support for a couple of fans on display as well down at the side, and plenty of length for our graphics card, if you know what I'm talking about, so we shouldn't have any system incompatibility issues. I really like this approach as well, where you just have to remove the top panel and then the glass just slides out nice and easy. This is something I think MSI copied on one of their new cases, but it works really well. It keeps things really nice and simple. I meant to say as well, guys, let me know what you think of the new set design in the comments below. I think it's a bit of an improvement over the old one, or at least I hope that you think it is. Otherwise, this is all a big waste. With the motherboard in, I am going to pop in the CPU cooler before we take a closer look at the graphics card choice for today's system. This is NZXT's legendary Kraken X63. It's got their nice RGB fans on here as well, with that infinite CPU water block design, and I think it's going to match our build aesthetic perfectly today. I'll link all the components, including this one, in the description below for latest pricing and availability as well, which definitely helps in the current climate. First things first, we just need to take off the pre-installed plastic brackets that come on the motherboard and replace them with these included posts. These will just slot over the existing backplate and give us a nice surface for which we can mount our CPU cooler. And then this bracket simply slides onto the back of the cooler, twist it to lock it into place, and then it will sit on top of the CPU. Nice and easily. Awesome stuff. That brings us nicely on to the aforementioned graphics card, the beating heart of today's build, and it is of course an RTX 3080. Now I know how difficult it is to get your hands on basically any GPU, but especially a 3080. Hopefully the stock situation will start to ease up this year. That's how bad the situation's got, but I love MSI's Suprim X card. It's an absolute monster. With 3 large fans, a really nice aluminium cooler, you get this lovely backplate, an extra power connector as well to enable some slightly faster boost clock speeds, and all in all, it's one hell of a GPU. It's going to look awesome in our system today as well and populate quite a lot of the case. The last thing that you want is to have a GPU that ends here and looks a bit silly, so the Suprim is an awesome choice. That looks fantastic. We're going to get all of our power cables plugged in just a second, but first let's fasten the GPU into place and then install some fans at both the top and the bottom of our case to make sure we've got plenty of airflow available. And of course, the more fans we add, the more RGB. And with that, the system looks fantastic. In order to power up not only our GPU, but all of our components today, we need to grab a power supply. This is a V850 Gold unit from Cooler Master, and importantly, it's an SFX unit. That's a slightly smaller power supply standard, which you'll need to use if you're going for this O11D mini case. I've never before seen a case that needs an SFX power supply, but simultaneously takes an ATX motherboard. It's a bit bizarre, but it isn't actually too much of a problem, as long as you know what you're looking for. Once we've gone ahead and plugged all those power cables up, I think we should boot the system up and see how well it performs in a load of the most popular titles. Before we do that though, let's see how good it looks when it's all powered up in an epic glam montage. Roll the montage. Would you just look at that system? You guys are right, the Lian O11D Mini in our case really has the potential for an incredible looking PC build. And that brings us nicely on to performance. Let's see just how good this system performs in some of your guys' favourite titles. Before we take a closer look at some of our focus games today, on your screen now first is a summary, a snapshot view, with all the frame rates and all the temperatures from all of the different games we tested out. You can see the machine is incredibly capable, providing some fantastic results across the board. From GTA 5 to Valorant, Overwatch and Cyberpunk, this machine has got you covered, with the Ryzen 7 and the RTX 3080 staying nice and cool in the process. Let's take a closer look at some of these games though, kicking things off with GTA 5. On your screen now, as always, is the gameplay recorded directly off this machine of GTA 5 at 4K high settings. We tested in the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode to make sure our results are really repeatable, and we got 119 frames per second on average. That's pretty incredible. The MSI Suprim RTX 3080 comes in strong, and you can read our full written review on GeekaWhat.com in the card section now. It's a similarly positive story when we go to look at Call of Duty's Black Ops Cold War. Here at 4K high settings with DLSS enabled, DLSS of course being Nvidia's incredible AI-powered resolution scaler that really works, we got 107 frames per second on average, with 86 and 74 for the 90 and 99th percentile results at 4K. Apex Legends is next, and it was pretty positive once again. We got 146 frames per second on average at 4K high settings. That's esports level frame rates at 4K high settings, and the 90 and 99th percentile results were pretty good as well, making sure we get a strong set of results, not just for our average, but also for our 1% lows and that kind of thing. Valorant is next today, a little bit of an easier title, I will admit, but still looked fantastic. 4K high settings gave us over 340 frames per second on average, with 288 and 262 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. We did of course also test Cyberpunk, and that's the next title today. Despite being incredibly buggy, very difficult to run and having frame rates that are just all over the shop, we did get some decent results. Around 95 frames per second at 1440p high, leveraging the power once again of DLSS with 77 and 65 for the 90 and the 99th percentile results. For anybody wondering, all of our FPS results are tested using both MSI Afterburner's Riva Tuner as well as NVIDIA FrameView, and that's for all of our builds to make sure we get some nice fair results. The final game we tested today then is Fortnite, and here at 1080p competitive settings we got in the region of 240 frames per second. 1080p competitive in Fortnite of course being at 1080p with low settings across the board, your render distance set to far so you can see the other players you're competing against regardless of where they are on the map, and of course DLSS enabled. DLSS gives you a frame rate boost in Fortnite at competitive settings, so make sure you turn it on. We also tested Fortnite at 1440p high settings, just in the name of fairness. If you'd like to play at that higher res and drop your frame rate down a little bit, you can still get around 150 frames per second, which is not a bad result. All in all, this machine is one powerful build, from the Ryzen 7 5800X to MSI's Suprim 3080 and NZXT's awesome Kraken X63 cooler. This build has got a few too many fans for some people's liking, but it does keep temperatures super low as you saw, and frame rates nice and high. And on that note, that pretty much wraps it up, not only for the benchmarks today, but the whole video. If you did enjoy it, give it a big old like rating, make sure to get subscribed if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching though, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.